everyone, Kate here, and welcome to my Q&A video. Yay! Hopefully this works, because I've had so many issues filming this video. I filmed this, I don't know, 5 times or something already, and I've had technical issues, I've had personal issues. Like, I suffer from chronic fatigue syndrome, and I tried filming a few times and I was really tired, and it came out as incoherent babble. So hopefully I'm a little clearer today. I'm filming this on a not too bad day, and I've had lots of coffee, and I have more coffee sitting on the floor in case I need it. So hopefully this is okay. Hopefully the sound's not too bad. I was having mic malfunctions, so there might be a bit of background noise. My lights make a fair bit of sound, but hopefully it's not too bad. So I'm going to sit here and I'm going to what am I doing? I'm going to sit here and answer the questions that you guys left me on. I had a video up for a week or two that asking for Q&A questions, so I printed them all off and I'm just going to answer them as we go along. So get ready. Before I get into the answering of questions, I'm going to go over the few that I'm not actually going to answer. So not answer here. I will answer, but bear with me a second. So there's three questions. April Cunningham asked, what did Victorian/Edwardian ladies carry in their purses? Or the other ones. Doro asked about nail care from the 1920s and 30s. And I believe it was... Oh, yeah, Doro also asked if my grandmother will accompany me on the Q&A or in a soon-to-follow video. Obviously, I'm alone. She's not here. Those 3 questions, I really like them. They were intriguing, and I have too much to say on those topics. So I will be doing a Victorian Edwardian purse video that I've already filmed. It was the same day my mic was malfunctioning, but I think that footage managed to escape the mic malfunction. So in a few weeks there will be a video specifically about what Victorian ladies had in their purses. I also have way too much to say about 20s, 30s nail care. It's not something I do myself very often, but I love 20s, 30s nails. So I will be doing a video specifically dedicated to that topic. Perhaps not for a while. I don't know when I'm going to have a chance to film that one, but I will talk in depth about that subject in an upcoming video at some point. And yes, my grandmother will be in a video. I have convinced her to come on and maybe not give her advice to vintage styled women per se, because she's more modern than I am, but she looks really, really good for her age. So I will hopefully get her on to give us some of her beauty secrets and tricks for looking good no matter what your age. So stay tuned. Alright, so now let's get on to the questions I'm actually going to answer. Let's just start at the beginning. So Ribbons and Rouge asked, I'm wondering how old you are and how old you were when you got into vintage style. Did you go through any different style phases beforehand? I am 27? Yeah, 27. I had to think about that for a second. And I don't know how old I was when I got into vintage style. I think I've always had a vintage influence to my outfits, though I didn't necessarily know that that's what that was. University is probably the time where I think, yeah, okay, I really started going hardcore with the vintage thing. But I was definitely into it earlier. When I was in high school and elementary school, I didn't have a set style per se. I would wear whatever took my fancy. I'd wear all kinds of different, sporty stuff and like punk rock stuff and vintage. What to my mind now looks very vintage. I had all kinds of stuff. I was just trying things out and seeing what fit, and the vintage stuff is what sort of fit my personal aesthetic. That's what I settled on. But when I look back, I definitely was wearing it early on. I just didn't know that that's what that was. Maybe I'll insert some pictures of little Kate here so you can get an idea. Okay, Carol asked a bunch of questions. The first one is, do you have an authentic flapper dress? Yes, Carol, I have 2 authentic flapper dresses. I have a black lace one that's in very good condition. It theoretically it would be wearable. I think it has a tear or 2, but it's quite good overall. I've never worn it. I don't intend to wear it. I keep it mainly for study and display purposes, but it would theoretically be wearable. And I also have a cream silk beaded laced beautiful dress that unfortunately is not wearable. I might, if I could replace the yoke, that would probably make it wearable, but I won't. Again, that one is also for study and display purposes. So yes, I do. I will put pictures here. I don't wear them. So Carol and Denise both asked what my favorite silent film is. I don't have a favorite, I think is the short answer to that. There are so many silent films that I love, and I love them for different reasons, and I love them in different moods. Like sometimes I'm in the mood for comedy, sometimes I want an adventure. What my favorite is depends quite a bit on that. If I had to pick one, it would have to be Buster Keaton. I love Buster Keaton. But I don't know which one. Maybe 1 Week. I'm going to say Buster Keaton's 1 Week film, just because that was the first Buster Keaton that I ever had the privilege of seeing. But the answer is I don't really have one. I love them all. They're all great. No, they're really not. There's some terrible silent films out there, but there's so many other great silent films, though. I love Mary Pickford films, Mabel Normand films, Harold Lloyd, Colleen Moore. I've seen a couple of her films that are really good. Clara Bow. Alfred Hitchcock's The Lodger. That's a really good silent film. I saw that one fairly recently. Oh, he's cute. Okay, Carol asks, is there an actress that inspires you? Not really. I don't know if she means on a style front or just like, I find their story inspirational. The early 20s is sort of really my time, the 20s and the 30s. But a lot of those actresses had fairly sad lives. Like, it didn't end well for a lot of them. So I don't know that I've read any story that I thought was particularly inspirational. There was a lot of drugs and alcohol and murder and rather gruesome deaths. There's certainly actresses who I admire certain characteristics, or I think they had a really great personal style, but I don't know that there's any that I personally look to for inspiration. If we're talking about characters, though, Miss Marple. Yeah, if we're not talking real people, Miss Marple, I find her very inspirational. Okay, and the last question that Carol asked is, why do you really like the 20s? I'm not quite sure how to answer this, because I'm not sure I really have an answer for it. It's mostly an aesthetic thing, to be quite honest. I don't look at the past through rose-colored glasses. I don't think, oh, it was so much better back then. I think there were certain aspects that appeal to me about the 1920s, but in terms of medical and social things, I would much rather live now. But I don't know. I don't know if it's partly the silent film, like the emergence of the silent film era. I think for the first time you get to really see people and get a glimpse into the past in a way that you couldn't with previous decades. There are some Victorian films, but really in the 1920s you're getting, and the late teens, early 1920s, you're getting this explosion of the motion picture industry, and you really get to see what things look like. Like, if you watch an old movie, you can see what did the clothes really look like? What did the hair really look like? And not just in a painting form, but you're actually getting a view of the past. You're seeing into the past. And I find that really intriguing. It's like seeing into a world that you'll never really be able to visit. And there's something, I don't know, magical about that. So maybe it's the motion picture and the ability to, for the first time, see a world that is lost to us. Or it could just be I like the clothing. It's probably the latter. Okay, B asked, I started watching your videos because I was interested in long hair setting patterns. Do curlers break your hair? They do mine. I've been setting them with bobby pins and have had better results. I find it depends on the type of curler. I don't set my hair as often as I used to. Back in university, I used to set it like every day, or I have it set all the time. I didn't actually wear curlers every day, but every hair wash, like every few days, I would reset it and I'd have beautiful curls. But with the chronic fatigue, I don't have energy for that. I only do it when I'm either want to try out a new hairstyle or I know I'm going out somewhere and I want to have my hair curled. But I find the satin covered foam rollers a lot better than the regular foam rollers. I get a lot less breakage with those. So I tend to use those more often, but I don't have a full set, so I don't use them all the time. They're better though. I think Sally sells them. I'm not entirely sure about that. But I bought them at a few different places. I also find they're perm rods. I've heard them called perm rods, and sometimes they're just called foam rollers, but they're not what I think of foam rollers. But the long bendy rods, I find those don't cause very much breakage. So if I just need not a structured curl, but I just need curl for volume or for sort of texture, I'll use those because it doesn't give me the beautiful ringlets, but it causes a lot less damage, and I find them a little more comfortable. I should put them right up on top of the head. I do have a video coming up. I say coming up. I haven't filmed it yet. It might not be coming up for another year, but I do have a video coming up where I'm going to recreate a 1920s curler and show you how to make your own. So the one test one I had, it caused less damage than the foam rollers. I don't know if that's going to be true for the whole set, but I had one little dinky curl on my forehead one day because I tried it out and it worked quite well, so that might be a solution. I've never had much luck with setting my hair with bobby pins. I don't know what it is personally about my hair, but it just doesn't set when I use bobby pins, when I do like pin curls or anything like that. So for me personally, it's just not something that works, but I can understand it causing less breakage. It is certainly a gentler style, but the only time I've ever had a good set with pin curls, I left those things in for like 2 days. And it was a poodle. I wasn't as experienced with brushing my hair out. And I was going for like Rita Hayworth curls, but I'll insert a picture. It was in university and I had to walk around all day with my hair like that because I didn't have time to fix it. It was actually kind of impressive. Okay, I also got asked why I use vodka in my perfume recipes instead of something like perfumer's alcohol or any of the other sort of perfumer products. There's a couple reasons. One, I want to make sure my recipes are as accessible to as many people as possible. I do sometimes purchase ingredients online, but if there is an easy option that somebody can just go to a store and buy, I will do that because I know some products are not accessible to everybody online. Some people don't shop online. Sometimes importing it into your country is difficult if you live somewhere, in Europe or something like that. The other reason that I use vodka is that in a lot of the perfume recipes that I'm using, the vintage recipes, vodka is fairly similar to the alcohol that was used at the time. Not all the recipes, but a lot of them use like a clarified grain spirit like vodka. They don't actually say vodka, but they say clarified spirit, or I'm trying to think what other terminology they use. But if you look into the research, it is a very similar alcohol to vodka in terms of modern things you can buy. Yes, there might be something that works better for you. I've always found vodka works perfectly well for my recipes. I've never had a problem, so I'm going to keep using it. I think it was Pamela. Oh yeah, there it is. Also asked what talkie films I enjoy. So that's films with sound. For those of you unfamiliar with old film speak. Some of my favorites are... I love Judy Garland films. Meet Me in St. Louis. If I had to pick a favorite talkie film, that would probably be it, because I watch it at least once a year, usually in the autumn, kind of close to Halloween, because I figure that's the perfect time to watch it, because I have the great Halloween scene, but then there's also a very good Christmas sort of thing that gets you in the mood for Christmas. So if you watch it a couple days before Halloween, you get the advantage of the Halloween stuff, but then it sort of moves you on into the Christmas season. Very, very strategic with my Judy Garland watching. Also on my list would be any of the Fred and Ginger films. You may be sensing a theme. Yes, I like fluffy little musicals. In addition to fluffy little musicals, I also like murder mysteries. I think it's the puzzle aspect of mysteries that always appeal to me. I consider myself to be a fairly intellectual person. I have a degree in mathematics, so obviously I like puzzle solving. And I find murder mysteries tend to give me that. There's always some sort of puzzle to solve. So my favorite murder mystery series is the Thin Man series. I like the first two Thin Man movies the best. I have the entire collection. But the first two are definitely the best. It kind of went downhill a bit near the end. I really don't like The Thin Man Comes Home. That's my least favorite. But the first two are... There are other films I like. Those are definitely my top three, but I like the Three Stooges. I do. I don't know why, but I really do. I like the East Side Kids movies. Those are really fun. I like Jean Harlow, Mae West. Really like Esther Williams. I'm sure there are others. Do we count Columbo as movies? I don't think Columbos count as movies per se. They're as long as a movie, but nobody asked me about TV shows. Okay, she also asked, do you like to collect vintage and antique items? Yes, I do. I really do. I have so many different collections. I have teacups. I have antique teacups, of course. I have antique magazines. I have a vintage, actually it's an antique postcard collection. They're all prior to 1920s, so they're all Victorian and Edwardian postcards. I have a vintage hair curling device collection, although they're too expensive now to really add to that collection. It's sad. They used to be cheaper. I have a vintage / antique book collection. I have a typewriter collection. I have old photo collection. I have all kinds of old stuff collections. I'm a bit of a magpie. I will collect just about anything that catches my fancy. I also collect antique clothing and, vintage clothing too, but I think of those as more wearable stuff, whereas the antique stuff is definitely just to have. So yes, I love it. I'm a natural born collector. We're gonna call it collecting, not hoarding. That's the polite term. Okay, Doro asked, is there anything any of us can do to win a 1920s, 30s makeover by you? I'm actually horrible at doing other people's hair and makeup. The only person's hair and makeup that I can do successfully is Britt, and my best friend. She's been in a few of my videos. And that's only because I've been doing her hair and makeup since we were, little, since elementary school, honestly. Yeah, so, I could give somebody a 20s, 30s makeover, but I don't know how good they would look at the end of it. Probably not very good. I think that's the answer to that. So, sorry. I could do something for you, but you would probably look awful by the end of it. Next question. When did you get into Victorian Edwardian and the 1920s? Again, I don't know that I have an answer to this, because I don't really know. I think I've always had an interest in it. I've lived in an old house all my life. Old house. Same old house, actually, all my life. And the shell is 1880s, I believe, and the interior, it was originally built as a outbuilding to a factory. I don't think it was the factory building, but it was built as part of the factory. And then converted to a house in about the 1920s. So a lot of the interior is 1920s. So maybe that's why I've just always been surrounded by it. But I don't know that there was never a moment of discovery per se. I've definitely discovered sources in which to indulge my passions over the years, like discovering archive.org, where I can read vintage magazines, and discovering Etsy, where I can buy old clothing and things, and just learning how to sew so I can make my own stuff. But in terms of the initial interest, I think it's always been there. I had a few sets actually, of paper dolls when I was younger, and one was the Roaring Twenties, and there was a Civil War era. It was sort of early Victorian period anyway, and I think a lot of that probably had an influence at a very, very little age, but it's definitely always been there, that interest. I don't think it started at any particular point. If you could only do time period hair or makeup for the rest of your life, which would you choose? I'm not entirely sure what this question is asking. I'm not sure if it's asking if I could only do hair or do makeup, which would I pick? Or if I could only do one time period of hair and makeup, which would I choose? So I'm just going to answer both questions, and one of them will be the answer to your question. If I could only do hair or makeup, I would probably say hair. I do my makeup more often than I do my hair, but I get more enjoyment out of styling my hair than I do makeup. So if I could only pick between hair and makeup for the rest of my life, I would rather do my hair. And if we're talking about like what decade, I have a very strategic answer. I would pick between let's say 1915 to 1925. So not a like 2030s kind of decade, but I'm cleaving a decade in half, because in that time period, you get the start of the 1920 styles. You're starting to see more structured waves, and you also are seeing influences of the Victorian and the Edwardian periods, especially in terms of on older women. A lot of the styles are still very Victorian, but even on younger women, especially in the earlier half, you're still seeing some of the loose puffed, more Edwardian styles. So if I say that decade, I get both earlier styles and later styles. I get everything. So that's my answer. Hair from the 1915 to 1925. I thought a lot about that. Okay, and the very last question, Miss B asked, what inspired you to share the vintage recipes the way you do? How do you go about researching them? The silent film format, originally I was doing hair tutorials, and I still do some, but I adopted the 1920s sort of silent film style while doing the hair tutorials, partly because I had poor miking. I still don't have very good miking, but it was partly a technical issue. I thought, well, if I don't have good sound quality, I might as well just make a silent film. And I do really enjoy silent films, so that's kind of a format that aesthetically appeals to me. They're also easier to edit. If I have to verbally, if I have to talk, there's more editing required. I'm not the most eloquent person, and I had a speech impediment as a child, so I'm not particularly comfortable speaking. I don't know if that's true. I have a knitting podcast. I started linking it below. I don't know how many people know that, but I do actually do a knitting podcast as well, if you're into that sort of thing. So I'm obviously, okay speaking in front of the camera, but for some reason I find that kind of video a lot more difficult to produce, because I don't speak well. In terms of research, I actually keep a folder on my computer full of vintage recipes, vintage tips, tricks, hairstyles, etc., all organized by decade and topic and all that stuff. And as I'm reading through a vintage beauty book, either online or I have a few that I actually own, I will keep track of recipes that I find either interesting or that I know have ingredients that are easy to get. A lot of historical recipes, you can't get the ingredients anymore, or they're not safe, like lead, mercury. That's not going to happen. But I keep track of the recipes that I think are actually doable, especially recipes that I already have ingredients for, or that I know the ingredients are easy to get. And then when I need a project, I go through the list and I pick one. I unfortunately can't afford to make whatever I want. I have to make what I need. So if I make a video about cold cream, for example, it's because I needed cold cream. All my recipes that I do are for things I need. And that's just the way it is, unless somebody wants to start paying me for these. Would mind, but it's not happening at the moment. I was gonna do a giveaway at the end of this video, but I've kind of lost the giveaway prize. It's taken me so long to film this, and I've been reorganizing my room, and I have no idea where I put it. So maybe in an upcoming video, if I ever find it, I'll do the giveaway. So sorry about that. This was supposed to be to celebrate my 3K mark, but I'm actually getting relatively close to the 4K mark, so thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and thank you for the continued support. I'm glad you enjoy it. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!